Good morning and welcome to the December 17th Victim Compensation Board meeting. Would you please call the roll?
Hold on one second. We're getting Kim to has a brief technical issue, so.
No worries.
Sorry about that. Member Shavaro.
Here.
Chairperson Richardson.
Here. Ms. Burrell, it's very difficult to hear you. Not sure that those who have joined us today can hear you. Is there any way that we can turn you up a little bit?
Can you hear me?
Much better, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Once again, we will move to item 1, which is the approval of the minutes for the November 19, 2020 board meeting.
So moved.
Second. Any public comment? Council, will you please call the roll?
Certainly. The motion before the board is approval of the November 2020 minutes. Member Shavaro.
Aye.
Chairperson Richardson.
Also aye.
Motion passes.
Next, we have item 2, which is public comment. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that are not on the agenda. As any items discussed during public comment have not been agendized, the board is not permitted to take any action on these matters at this meeting. For those on the phone, if you previously indicated your desire to offer comments during this agenda item, we will be calling on you by name or phone number. For those participating via Zoom, please raise your hand if you wish to offer comment, and we will acknowledge you and let you know when it is your turn to speak. I don't think we have anyone for public comment, so we will move to item 3, which is the Executive Officer Statement, which will be presented by Executive Officer Linda Gledhill.
Good morning, board members, and welcome to the final board meeting of 2020. It has certainly been a year like unlike any other. And a reminder that in January, the board will be meeting every other month. So January, and then the next meeting will be in March. I am pleased to announce that we have hired a new Deputy Executive Officer of the Information Technology Division. His name is John Kramer, and he started here on Monday. John comes to us from the Community Services and Development Department, where he has been the CIO for nearly 4 years. And prior to that, John worked at the California Department of Technology, the Lottery, Child Support Services, and before coming to the state, Hewlett-Packard. I'm delighted to have him on board, especially as we work toward building a new website, and IT has a critical role in our organization as we continue to telework. We now have all of our deputy positions filled, which is the first time since I started here at Cal VCB. Having a full team is just one of the reasons I'm excited about what we can accomplish in the new year. Almost a year ago, December 31st to be exact, I stepped into this role to take over for Julie Nauman, who had retired. I want to thank the board, everyone at Cal VCB, GovOps, and the governor's office for your support and trust in me. By any measure, it has been an extraordinary year. I know that 2020 will be a year we all look back on and talk about for many years to come. On top of coping with the challenges of a pandemic, both for me and for our organization, I had a lot to learn and a lot to do. I've been energized by this responsibility, and I'm proud of the progress we have made in the past 12 months. The next item on our board agenda is the annual report for fiscal year 2019-2020, and I will talk more specifically then about application and compensation numbers. But this year, organizationally, we have kept our focus on assisting victims of crime, improved our application processing time, transitioned nearly all staff to telework, hired a strong new leadership team, reorganized the department to increase efficiency and functionality, and undertaking new initiatives, including redesigning our website, updating our strategic plan, and boosting employee engagement. I view all of these as a start, and I'm very excited about finishing these projects and taking on new ones in the new year. There's so much work to be done as we strive to make Cal VCB a model department and well-known reputable leader in providing victim assistance in California. With the public focused on social and racial justice issues and increasingly aware of victims of all kinds, it's imperative that Cal VCB does its job well and serves as a resource for others. That will continue to be my goal as we start the new year. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
No questions.
Thank you, Officer Gledhill, and congratulations on being here 1 year. And you are absolutely correct. It has been definitely an unprecedented time. And I just want to thank you and the team for your focus and all of the different changes that you've had to go through with everything that has been happening externally to Cal VCB, and continuing to stay focused on the mission and your service. And so thank you for everything that you've done. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And Member Shavaro, you said you had a question?
I just was curious as to the percentage of your staff that's teleworking.
Yes, well, so I would say before the most recent order to close state offices more completely, we were at probably 90%, maybe even a little bit higher teleworking. Obviously, with the recent shift, this 3-week period at least, we're moving even more people to telework and having fewer people come into the office. And we certainly are looking toward a long-term telework strategy as we move to the future.
Good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Moving to item 4 is the Cal VCB annual report for fiscal year 2019-2020 that will also be presented by Executive Officer Linda Gledhill.
Thank you so much. So I would like to present to you now the Cal VCB annual report, which covers fiscal years 2019-2020. And so I always say this to myself so I get it right. That's July 1, 2019 to June 30th, 2020. I share the accomplishments of this report with my predecessor, Julie Nauman, who led the organization for 6 months of this time span. I'm just going to touch on a few highlights of the report. You have the full version, which is also posted on our website, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Next slide. So big picture, during this fiscal year, we processed 50,669 applications, which was down about 4.3% from the previous fiscal year. Compensation, which was at 58,000, over 58,000, was also down a 5.1% decrease from 2018-2019. Some of this probably can be attributed to the stay-at-home order in March, which resulted in a sharp initial decrease in applications and compensation. Next slide. So here are some highlights of our application statistics. For types of applications, you can see that assault was the most common with just over 21,000. Number 2 was child abuse, and number 3 was homicide, followed closely by sexual assault. And these numbers are consistent year to year with what we have seen in the past. Next slide. Compensation statistics, again, also by crime type, and also these are consistent with previous years. Assault was the category where we paid out the highest amount, nearly $26.5 million, followed by homicide and child abuse. Next slide. So this is the organizational chart reflective of July 1, 2020. And while this is just outside of our the fiscal year that we're talking about, I wanted to put this in there because this is something we worked on and moved toward as part of this fiscal year. We reorganized to increase efficiencies and functionality and better structure our personnel based on program needs. And I'm really pleased to say 6 months into this that it really seems to have be working well for everyone. Next slide. So as we all know, in mid-March, when the governor issued a stay-at-home order, our lives changed fundamentally. That's true also here at Cal VCB. Next slide. Cal VCB moved quickly to shift employees from the office to telework from home. Some employees were temporarily shifted from other Cal VCB units to process paperwork and answer calls, as we did see an increase at the time. Other changes included an increase in online applications, which now make up almost half of all the applications submitted. Telehealth, which we now allow, while the stay-at-home order is in effect, to be billed without needing an exemption. And also early inmate release. We help provide information about compensation to victims, including the ability to file a late form for those crimes that occurred more than 7 years ago. Let me say again how proud I am of our staff and the work that they do on behalf of victims of crime. During this time of this report, they saw nearly a complete turnover in executive staff, a new chair of the board, and of course, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The work that they do and the situations that they deal with can be difficult and stressful, even in the best of times, but coping with a pandemic and adjusting to working from home in 2020 added to their challenges. I want to reiterate how appreciative I am of their dedication and hard work through all of this. Last slide. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the report.
Member Shavaro, any comments or questions?
No. No, I don't.
I have no questions, but thank you again for all your hard work this year.
Thank you.
Item 5 is the Penal Code Section 4900 claim of Derek Harris that will be presented by Cal VCB Chief Counsel Kim Gauthier.
Hello, thank you. On October 28, 2020, Derek Harris submitted an application for compensation as an erroneously convicted person pursuant to Penal Code Section 4900. The application is based upon Mr. Harris's 7+ years imprisonment for the 2013 convictions of second-degree robbery and related charges, which were vacated on habeas based on newly discovered evidence that demonstrated Mr. Harris's factual innocence of the crimes. At the request of the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office, a finding of factual innocence was issued on October 6, 2020. In light of this binding determination, the proposed decision recommends the legislature appropriate $379,540 as payment to Mr. Harris, representing $140 for each of the 2,711 days he was wrongfully imprisoned. Throughout these proceedings, Mr. Harris has been represented by Michael Semanchik of the California Innocence Project, who I believe is with us today. Also, Deputy Attorney General Barton Bowers has requested to address the board today as well. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Counsel. We will first hear from Mr. Michael Semanchik, Counsel for Mr. Harris.
Hi, thank you so much to the board members and to everyone that's been involved in this process so far. I just wanted to briefly address everyone and the board. As was mentioned, Derek did receive a factual finding of innocence, which in this case means that he is due automatic compensation from the board. That's definitely warranted in this case because of the district attorney's exhaustive investigation. So not only did they go and actually talk to, interview, and obtain confessions from the true perpetrators, but they went and talked to additional witnesses that confirmed that in fact it wasn't Derek that was responsible for this crime. But they did, and they were able to find the true perpetrators. Due to that investigation, they agreed to reverse and dismiss the conviction, as well as agreed to the finding of factual innocence. And the Los Angeles Superior Court signed off on all of that. The second thing I just wanted to quickly talk about is Derek's current situation. So compensation is an extremely important part of what we try to do when we reverse and exonerate a person who's factually innocent. Derek unfortunately missed some of the best years of his son's life, as well as his own life. His son was 2 when Derek went to prison, and when Derek was released, his son was 9 years old. So he's come out to try to resume caring for his son, and of course he hasn't had a job in those 7 years and has no funds. So these funds will certainly help him and his son to get back on their feet. It's also very challenging, as has been mentioned on this in this meeting, just how challenging these times are right now as far as Derek finding a job and getting back into school and then reacclimating into the community. It's very difficult when you are released into a worldwide pandemic. The last thing I just want to mention is that I really appreciate how quickly the board has moved in making this recommendation. I just wish, and I think Derek wishes too, that the legislature would act faster. And perhaps there's a way that we, as a state and as the board and community, can encourage the legislature to appropriate the funds in a faster fashion, so that Derek can receive the funds and actually get back to living his life sooner rather than later. With that, I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Stamancic, for your comments. The board really appreciates it. We will now hear from Mr. Barton Bowers of the Attorney General's office.
Yes, this is Deputy Attorney General Barton Bowers. I'd simply join in asking that the decision be adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowers. Is there any discussion on this item?
No, I'll move staff recommendation to approve the claim.
I second the motion. Council, will you please call the roll?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to call for public comment first. Hearing and seeing none. The motion before the board is adoption of the hearing officer's proposed decision in the Penal Code Section 4900 matter of Mr. Derek Harris, which includes a recommendation that the legislature appropriate $379,540 for payment to Mr. Harris. Member Shavaro,
Aye.
Chairperson Richardson.
Also aye.
Motion passes.
The board will now convene into closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 1126 to discuss items 1 through 51 of the Victim Compensation Program. At the conclusion, we will return. Thank you. Okay. The board is now reconvening into open session pursuant to Government Code Section 11126C3. Do I have a motion for numbers 1 through 51 of the Victim Compensation Program?
Yes, I move staff recommendation on all items.
I second the motion to approve numbers 1 through 51 of the Victim Compensation Program. Council, will you please call the roll?
Member Shavaro,
Yes.
Chairperson Richardson,
Aye.
motion passes.
Is there any other business that needs to come before the board today?
None that I'm aware of.
All right, seeing and hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Council, will you please call the roll?
Member Shavaro,
Aye.
Chairperson Richardson,
Chair is also aye.
motion passes.
The next meeting is scheduled to occur on January 21st, 2021.
Thank you and Happy
Thank-
New Year.
Same
Happy
to
New
you,
Year to
Yeah.
everybody.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Same to
Happy
you all.
holidays.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.